Hi y'all, Sat Sri Akal. This is Taq from BIPOC Executive Search getting at you today for the Wellness and Work podcast. A podcast where I share stories and tips to keep you healthy, happy, and motivated for your day job. Today's topic is how to deal with negative people at work and in life. This is something very dear to me because I find myself very affected by the energy of people around me. So I'm very, tuned in, self-aware to, my own self, how I show up in the world. I like to always show up with a smile, with positivity, avoid complaining as much as possible because I'm just so aware of all the privileges that I have in my own life. And, gratitude for everything that I have at the moment, not just in terms of materially, but in terms of my relationships, in terms of being able to, fulfill, my life's purpose, being passionate about my job and my business. It's just, something that I don't take for granted is how good I have it in life. So when I come across people who either have a lot of negative self-talk, so they might be, really smiley and bright and happy, but, downplay their own skills or talk negatively about themselves or others, or even people who just complain a lot about their lives, or, just always have something negative to say about somebody or something that's happened to them, either in our work lives or in our personal lives. I am just so, turned off by it. But sometimes I can get really affected by it energetically and sort of absorb that negativity. And it's taken me a while, but I've built up a few practices and tips and methods to be able to, avoid absorbing that energy and avoid having it affect me. I'm not perfect in this regard. I definitely do still get frustrated sometimes, but it's much less than I have in the past. I like to think about, people on different aspects of a spectrum, with people who are really empathetic on one side of the spectrum, who, feel what other people feel. There's an amazing author, sci-fi author named Octavia Butler, and in one of her series, she has people who are these empaths that actually feel the physical pain of people around them. So similarly, in this reality, people might identify as empaths in the sense that you have all the feelings, you feel all the feelings that you feel, plus you can pick up on all the feelings and emotions and energies of the people around us. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum is people who, in the personality research world, people might be called narcissists. I find that a bit of a condescending term and one that evokes a negative connotation. So I prefer the term apath. That's, it's not a scientific term. It's literally one that I just made up because I find it resonates most with me. And you can actually be healthy in all forms of that personality spectrum. So you can have healthy empaths, you can have unhealthy empaths, you can have healthy apaths, you can have unhealthy apaths. To give you an example, I shared myself, I identify as an empath. I've worked to move away from the unhealthy versions of it, which is being, people pleasing, not taking care of myself, letting other people's views and opinions of me or feelings about the world affect how I feel, and moving more towards being self-empowered, using my skills as an empath to be able to relate to people, make them feel safe, make them feel, like they have built a connection with me. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, when we think about a healthy apath, we can think about somebody like Oprah Winfrey, who is able to use her skills as an apath to actually, go into some deep topics that might be really hard for others to talk about, and actually be able to ask questions about it, talk about it on a public platform without it necessarily affecting her mental health negatively. Whereas somebody who's an unhealthy empath, just cares only about themselves, they're not self-aware, and they say a lot of things that might harm other people without even realizing it or without any regard for the people around them. Somebody who's chronically late is sort of an unhealthy empath. So this topic is around negativity and negative people at work, but it's important to sort of realize where people are on that spectrum, and then we can sort of adjust and move accordingly around those particular personalities. So somebody who's an empath, who's more, we feel is more negative, might have more of that negative self-talk, putting themselves down, maybe unintentionally putting you down because they are, talking about how hard they have it in life or what they're going through. And then on the empath side, we might experience negativity in the form of people just complaining about everything, or, thinking that they're superior to you in every single way and talking to you in a condescending tone and those sorts of things. So just sort of knowing where people are coming from in terms of their personality will help us deal with it in a particular way. So I always like to start a podcast with my own story, and I can share that there is particular group of people that I am connected to by way of family, and I love them. I know they love me, and it's very important for me to maintain that relationship, just because I do think it's important. They're not really somebody that I can just cut off and never speak to again, just by nature of geography and love, and those sorts of things. But literally every time I see them, I put up an energetic shield, and energetic vortexes, to absorb their negativity, because I know that, as much as people can change, they will only change when it's the time for them, and change sometimes can be quite incremental. So there are times where I've seen these people and everything they say just totally triggers me, and I come home and it feels like I have had all the lifeblood sucked out of me, and other times where I'm really mindful of my own energy and putting up that shield, and I can come home and be totally fine. So that's my little story and anecdote. I come across it all the time, and I can even tell sometimes when I speak with candidates in my own work, where they fall on that spectrum of empath to empath, and where they are on the spectrum of having more of a positive outlook on life versus a more negative outlook. And you can really pick up on that energy. So I come across this all the time, in my work, in my personal life. So in terms of how do we then deal with it? What are some ways that we can, manage our own energy, manage the impact that they have on us? The first one I would say is to aim to identify what is triggering you about that person. So typically when we have, a negative response to somebody, or we feel drained by somebody, it's probably because they are saying something or acting in a way that's triggering an insecurity in our own self, or something that's maybe not in alignment with our own values. So for instance, if we come across somebody who's just like complaining about their life and how horrible they have it, and this person did this, and I went to this amazing dinner, but it was horrible, and the waiter was horrible, and blah, blah, blah. They're going on and on. So there, it might be a value that's being triggered for you. So your value might be that you aim to see, be grateful for everything you have in life, and you're coming across this person who is so obviously not. So you want to see what's being triggered there. Or if it's somebody who, is going on and on about how hard it is to find a job right now, and it's going to be impossible for you to find that job, and they can't believe that you just, quit your steady job and now are, scrambling to find something else. It might be, they're triggering an insecurity that you might have about your own worthiness. So really, it's the first step is sort of figuring out what is that button that they are pressing that is causing you to feel frustration or anger or sadness or any of the emotions that we tend to associate with sort of that low vibe or negative state. The second piece is understanding the flow of energy. So our entire world is made out of energy, of vibrating atoms, and nothing is static. So energy is constantly flowing. Our body is made out of energy. And when we interact with people, we are exchanging energies with each other. So I talked about how when I go and meet with this particular group of people, I will put up literally an energetic shield. So I visualize a shield around me where their energy is bouncing off of it, not able to come in to my personal space. And that's one way that we can understand that, energy is always moving. We can absorb it, we can release it, we can have it flow through us. So having that awareness that it's not just what they're saying and what they're doing, but actually the vibrations, the energy that it's causing within us and within them that is affecting us as well. So going beyond, just that surface level understanding to more of that high level understanding of how energy flows will help us sort of in the processing of that negativity. And then third is a practice that I like to use that I learned from one of my dear friends, Hilary Sears, who is an energy healer based here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And she taught me this practice of setting up energy vortexes. So knowing that our entire universe is made of energy, we can actually prepare ourselves, in addition to setting up that shield before we go out and meet with people who, might affect us, who might be negative. We can set up these vortexes to be able to absorb anything that they're giving to us, so that we don't bring it into our bodies or into our own, energetic field, and instead they're being absorbed by these energy vortexes. And you might be like, what are you talking about, Taq? I invite you to try it. If it resonates with you, that's great. If it doesn't, then, that's all good too. So with respect to the energy vortexes, I'll invite you to imagine that, you're in your body, your feet are grounded to the floor, your head is held tall and you're in connection with where you are in space. And then imagine sort of an eggshell shaped field, an aura or an energetic field around you. So you're in your body and then you have your energetic field around you. That's sort of the shape of an egg. So heavier or more energy on the bottom and sort of a cone shape on the top. And what we can do is before we go out into a situation, whether that's every morning before showing up for work or before going to a particular social gathering where you'll be encountering some people who you find are very negative, you can imagine yourself placing roses or any kind of flower in all places on your field that you'd like to. So I like to set it up, one to my left, one to my right, one in front of me, one behind me, one at the top of my head, one at my feet, and then one at my heart. And you can imagine that those flowers are actually energy vortexes or black holes that are going to be absorbing anything that people are throwing at you that you do not want to absorb. And you can say that, you can set the intention that they'll do it for you subconsciously. So you don't even need to necessarily think about it or be really mindful as you're around those people. It does help to do that and literally physically imagine whatever it is they're throwing at you going into those energy vortexes, as opposed to it coming, inside you and you absorbing it. But even if you say that you'd like to set the intention of it continuing on and being like on automatic mode, whether you remember in that moment or not, this is going to help in terms of, directing that energy away from you and back towards that person, or just into the universe, into the space to get composted. So those would be the ways that I deal with negative people at work and in life. Just remember that you're worthy, you're amazing, you are filled with positivity and gratitude and joy. And I'd just like to recap them real quick. So the first thing is to aim to identify what is triggering you about that person. The second is to understand that everything is made out of energy, energetics, make the universe go round. And once we understand that, we can manage our own energy, we can be aware of our own energetic field, and then we can use that third piece of setting up those energy vortexes to absorb any negativity or negative thoughts, negative, vibes and emotions that people are sending towards us. So with that, I'll call it here for now. Sending you all lots of love. Talk soon. Bye.